Day 2 of Southeastern Conference Media Days officially in the books, and after having an entertaining kickoff day on Monday where we heard from Commissioner Greg Sankey, Texas A&M, Kentucky, and LSU. On Tuesday, we heard from the coordinator of officials, Steve Shaw, Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, Matt Luke and the Ole Miss Rebels, Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators, and also Chad Morris and those Arkansas Razorbacks. We are live inside, or live on, in my own words, hottest conversation in terms of Alabama football. Touchdown Alabama Magazine, Stephen M. Smith. On tomorrow, that being Wednesday, head coach Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide take the podium. Saban bringing along running back Damian Harris, offensive lineman Ross Pierschbaker, linebacker Anthony Jennings. Wednesday will be the big day as the Crimson Tide take the podium. But got a chance to talk about head coach Nick Saban. Should he get more consideration for Coach of the Year? That was a fun topic in the previous segment. And before I unleash that, drop that to social media, YouTube, and also SoundCloud, checking out that podcast. Interesting news came out today regarding Alabama as rising senior linebacker Keith Holcombe no longer on the Crimson Tide's roster. If you check out RollTide.com, you will not see number 42 on the roster. And this is interesting because now, at that inside backer position, Crimson Tide razor thin. After Mack Wilson, Dylan Moses, your two main guys, young players are going to have to step up. And whether that player is Markel Benton, for Alabama fans, your hope, your prayer is that it's Ben Davis. Also keep in mind the Tide signed Jalen Moody, a three-star guy for the 2018 class. And then there is Joshua McMillan on the roster. So there's some guys to play around with under Pete Golding, first-year inside linebackers coach and co-defensive coordinator coming over from University of Texas, San Antonio. But after Dylan Moses, Mack Wilson, there's a big drop where experience is concerned at inside linebacker. But going back into Holcomb, was recruited, signed in 2014 as a four-star out of Hillcrest High School in Tuscaloosa. It's located on Highway 69 South, like you're going toward Moundville. Redshirted his freshman year. From 2015 to 2017, he's totaled 71 career tackles, 29 of those on special teams. That's 41%. Aside from J.K. Scott, you point to Keith Holcombe as Alabama's best player on special teams. Kick coverage, punt coverage, natural headhunter, running down the field, knocking guys' blocks off. That was Keith Holcombe. Played with that one-track mindset, that one type of speed, going down there, going fast, being physical, covering the ball, covering the kick, making big-time tackles. If you go back to the 2015 season for just a moment, he recorded a blocked punt for safety in the Southeastern Conference Championship game against Florida. He's got an incredible background story. Played with diabetes. Never let that slow him down. Would take insulin in practice, would take insulin during the games, and would go out there, still battle, still fight, still play hard. A great story, not necessarily an elite player, an elite talent at that inside linebacker position. And it's a spot where Alabama is used to having the elite talent. You look at Rolando McClain, Donta Hightower, C.J. Mosley, Reggie Ragland, Reuben Foster, even with Sean Dion Hamilton, Rashawn Evans being hurt at times, still elite talented players before getting hurt. And then you have Mack Wilson, Dylan Moses, big-time playmakers and what they bring to the table. Keith Holcombe, great story. And you can be a great story. You can be that 500 to 1,000-yard blurb at the front of a newspaper, but not necessarily the elite talent that Alabama needs at that position, especially if you go back and check out my previous podcast where I mentioned in talking about running back Najee Harris, Nick Saban recruits heavily at 4 different positions. And I pointed out, linebacker, running back, defensive back, and wide receiver. At that inside backer position, linebacker position in question, Saban brings in a lot of guys. And some guys are elite level talents, and some guys are just great stories. Keith Holcombe fits in that great story position, and that became highly evident this past season in Alabama's matchup against Mississippi State. Had 6 tackles in that ball game, but Keith looked overwhelmed, looked outmatched. He did not attack the play. And for linebackers in years past under Nick Saban, you've known those guys to attack the play. They don't wait for the guy to come to them. They go after the guy. They dissect it, read it, attack it, boom. Meet him head on at the mesh point. Keith Holcombe against the Bulldogs let the play come to him. And when he let the play come to him, Nick Fitzgerald ran him over. Eris Williams, running back, ran him over. Just did not possess the physicality to meet the play head on and knock guys back. And it's because of that where Alabama struggled against Mississippi State, struggled against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and you can get away with having a guy like Keith Holcombe against teams like Colorado State and Fresno State. He had 16 tackles combined in both of those games, 9 against Colorado State, 7 against Fresno State. You can get away with that because those types of programs don't have the elite talent. You can roll Keith Holcombe out there and he can make plays, but against your LSUs, your Ole Misses, your Auburns, your Mississippi States, against Southeastern Conference opponents, against Southeastern Conference competition, you're going to need your big-name elite guys that have that physicality, that nastiness, that attack the play, that get to the mesh point and knock guys back on their butt. That's what you need. Keith Holcombe, great story, not the elite level player, but Alabama is always expecting or always has at that inside linebacker position. I remember Nick Saban during the offseason going into spring ball had a conversation with Keith Holcombe. The conversation was commit to baseball. Commit the spring to baseball. That's why Keith Holcombe did not play in the spring of this season. Now, a lot of people felt like maybe he comes back in the fall, but Saban told him to commit to baseball for a reason. Because after he said that, he had no further contact with Keith Holcombe. If Keith Holcombe was to have come back, great. Could have used him on special teams, could have used him in the rotation, but there's a reason why Nick Saban wasn't sweating over him not coming back, and that's because Nick Saban knows, and I think after last season, Keith Holcombe knows, my career is going to be in baseball. In football, he will be merely a special teams guy. And for a lot of players, you can take the special teams route and become a big-time player where you need to be at, whether it's on offense or defense. For example, you look at University of Central Florida, they put Shaquem Griffin in the National Football League for the Seattle Seahawks. He will start on special teams. He will look to become in that role of being a linebacker. And even with playing with one hand, he still got that physicality. Even with one hand, he still has that mentality to attack at the mesh point and meet the play head on. With Keith Holcombe, the play comes to him. He doesn't attack the play. So that's where the issue lies for him at Alabama. He could be a strong special teams player. He could be a good rotationary piece. But with Keith and you being with the Crimson Tide, you want to be more. You see what I'm saying? You want to be more than just rotationary guy. You want to be more than just special teams. You want to be a high-level impact player. And for Keith, not in the cards. Versus baseball, where there is a professional career for him. I go back to, well, I look at his first year playing baseball, 2016. Keith Holcombe started 32 of 37 games as a freshman, had a .279 batting average, which was third on the team. You have a lot of guys that bat .279, .280, .290 that make it into the Hall of Fame, especially if you have the home runs, if you have the runs batted in, if you have the criteria that entails you getting into the Hall of Fame. You can have .260, .270, .280, .290 batting average. I've seen guys that bat at .250, and because they have the home run criteria, the hits, the RBI, the stolen bases, they have all of that criteria, they get into the Hall of Fame. So Keith Holcombe, freshman year, batted .279, third on the team. He led the team in hitting during a number of games in the 2016 season. But this past year, 51 hits, was third on the team. He had 11 multi-hit games, which was third on the team. There were a lot of moments in the last couple of seasons with Keith Holcombe. He's had 8-game hit streaks where he's come up to the plate, he's reaching base safely in consecutive games, carrying a on-base percentage of .436. Baseball, it's where it's at for Keith Holcombe. He's a strong utility player in the outfield, timely hitter when he comes up to the plate. Baseball is where Keith Holcombe gets drafted. Do not see Keith Holcombe getting drafted in football. The ultimate goal for a lot of these guys is to get to the National Football League, is to hear your name called on draft night. And on the football field, Keith Holcombe may not see his name called on draft night. Now, he could possibly, because playing under Saban, make an NFL roster as an undrafted free agent. But in terms of having film, or the type of film that an NFL owner, scout, general manager, coach can look at, and it jumps off the page and it grabs you, and you're thinking, we gotta look at this guy, we have to study this guy, we have to draft this particular player. Keith Holcombe does not have that film. And there's a reason why Nick Saban said, if you come back, Keith, we appreciate it, we can use you, but if you decide not to come back, we ain't tripping. And the reason why, Nick Saban, Keith Holcombe, they know he's a great story, tremendous story, but not the elite level talent that Alabama's used to having. Rolando McClain, elite level talent. Donta Hightower, C.J. Mosley, Reuben Foster, Reggie Ragland, Sean Dion Hamilton, Rashaan Evans, Mack Wilson, as he's expecting to try to get some hardware this year, Dylan Moses, all of these guys, elite level talents. The body type, the intelligence, attacking the play, meeting guys head on. That's what they do. That's what Alabama used to. Keith Holcombe, great story, not that type of talent. It's almost like in the same way, Alabama fans look at Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. Great story, has been able to win games by managing the game, and Alabama for the longest of time under Nick Saban has not had to have the big level play at quarterback. They've been able to get around it. But when you look at the national championship game against Georgia, it needed that next level, that elite play at quarterback. If it did not have the elite play at quarterback coming off the bench in Tua Tagovailoa, Georgia wins the game going away. And if you would have played Oklahoma instead of Georgia, you would have definitely needed the elite level talent at quarterback, because that's what Oklahoma had. And Baker Mayfield, who, by the way, won the Heisman Trophy and who was the #1 overall pick in this year's venue. So whether you would have played Georgia or Oklahoma, you would have needed an elite level talent on that field to keep you in the ball game. And with how much tempting it is to put Tua out there, because you think about how explosive, how dynamic, how great my offense can be if you're Nick Saban under Michael Locksley calling the plays, Josh Gaddis as co-OC, Dan Enos as quarterback coach. How dynamic can my offense really be with these three guys working together and Tua at the helm calling the shots? Very intriguing. But getting back to Keith Holcombe, wishing him the best in baseball. No longer on the roster. Tremendous story, but Alabama needing that guy that attacks the play moving forward. And after Dylan Moses, Mack Wilson, there is a drop in experience at that inside linebacker position. The prayer, the hope is Ben Davis. Father Wayne Davis, all-time career leader in tackles, 327 in Tide history. His son Ben, going into his redshirt sophomore year, has the light bulb finally come on. That's the prayer. During the spring, he was third-string linebacker. Can he come up quickly? But more than likely, it will be Markel Benton, the redshirt freshman. When you talk to players about Markel, quickly growing, quickly rising, picking up things. When I've talked with other members of the media, it's his IQ rivals one of Rolando McClain. We'll see. Should be an interesting fall camp moving forward as we get through the month of July, head into August. Taking final break here on In My Own Words. When we get back, we'll touch on the likes of the tight end position. I know I teased that during the coaches' national awards thing in terms of Nick Saban. But when we come back, we'll talk about top 5 tight ends of the Nick Saban era. We will finally jump into that. We left off at wide receivers. We'll get in the tight ends. Don't touch that dial, folks. It's In My Own Words. We'll be back. It's your boy, Stephen M. Smith, host of In My Own Words, the podcast. If you are a fan of this show, then I encourage you to subscribe to the Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube channel. Also follow the brand on Facebook, Twitter, and other forms of social media as we continue to bring you the best in Alabama football and Crimson Tide athletics.